my desk, okay?
Sure.
Great. How are you?
I'm well. I'm just opening some things, so I might be like looking distracted.
Yeah, no worries. Um, I'm sorry. No, I know the feeling.
Yeah.
So don't even worry about it. How was your vacation?
It was really good. Yeah, it was
Nice.
relaxing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was good.
Oh, great.
Needed. Last time I opened a bunch of stuff and it all crashed during the meeting, so I hope that doesn't happen again.
Hopefully not, but it sounds like everyone's kind of moving forward, which
Okay.
is great. So
Yeah. Yeah, I got some stuff from the subcommittee, the ADA facility forum subcommittee today, which was helpful.
yeah. Oh,
Hello.
great.
Yeah, let me keep
I'm gonna
reading.
try to. Can you hold on for 1 second? I'm
Yeah,
gonna try
take your
and.
time.
Yeah.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm just pulling up some things right now, so don't
Okay.
mind me. Let's see. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
But can we hear you?
Hello, hello. Can you
Oh,
hear me?
no. Try that.
Hello, hello.
Oh, we
Hi.
success.
Hi.
Sorry, my computer's on the fritz, of course, 5 minutes ago.
Oh gosh. Okay.
I'm gonna sit in here with Christine.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for joining. Let's see.
Link's gonna be 15-20 minutes late.
Yeah, he messaged me.
Yep.
I made a note. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna start. We're gonna go through the minutes and then I'm gonna ask each group to update where they're at.
Yep.
But I figured I'd just wait for that group last since like I hopefully by then Link can come in.
I'm gonna let
So I
Margot
think that's
in
what I'll
there.
do.
Let Margot in, I suppose.
We'll be on a Zoom.
Alright. You think we should wait a few more minutes, or maybe we can
We
just
get
get started? I
started.
think we're missing Eric and Julie at this moment in time.
Yep.
All right. Devices. Okay. Okay, I'm just showing here the meeting minutes from December. I figure we can kind of just go through these really quick first. And just go through this process like we've been doing for each meeting. Not sure if Amy, you want to start that process.
So I had no comments on the meeting minutes. I thought they were good. Does anybody else have any comments on the minutes?
No, I thought they were fine.
That sounds like a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay,
All right,
great.
thank you, Kalia, for doing those.
Thank you. Okay. I think the bulk of this meeting is just going to be kind of having everyone talk about where they're at. And later on, we can discuss our timeline of when we actually want all the materials to be due, when the next meeting will be in February. So we can talk about that later. But I just really want everyone to kind of give me an update and give the group an update too about where everyone is. And we can go by subcommittee. I'm gonna do the ADA facility form subcommittee last, just because Link's gonna be a little bit late. So I think we can start with section 3.
Mhm.
Remind
be
me who
me.
is in section group. Okay, thank you.
So I think I'm the only editor of that, and then I believe Kelly and Mike will be available to review once everything's finished. So I'm about halfway finished with section 3. And in order to now spend a little bit more time on section 4, which I'll be working on with Dawn, I've given some of that lift on section 3 with the demographics to my assistant agent, Leisha. So we'll definitely by next meeting, we'll be done with section 3, and we'll share that with Mike and Kelly for review and editing prior to that, our next meeting,
Okay.
if that sounds good.
Yeah, that
we're not
does.
hitting any stumbling blocks or anything like that. It's just a time thing.
Totally.
So I'm gonna delegate, now that I've given a first pass to of it, I'm gonna give it to Leisha for some fine tuning in my department. And then I haven't had a chance to start section 4 yet, and Dawn and I are gonna be meeting next week, Dawn Yanuzzi and I, for section 4.
Okay. Yeah, I might follow up. Once
Mhm.
we take a look, I think what I want, we could talk about this again later too, but I think we should set the due date to be the week prior to the next meeting.
Sure.
That way I can take a look at everything and we
Mhm.
can spend that meeting maybe if there are any questions that I might have, I can have some time to take a look, and then we can make it a more efficient meeting instead of just like having everything come in at the same time. But okay,
Sounds
that
good.
sounds really good. Thank you for that.
Sorry
Um,
not to have more.
No, it's okay. I mean, I just want like to know what's going on if anyone needs help with anything too. I'm definitely not expecting any like final products at this time, so yeah. Okay, so that kind of leads then into section 4, in terms of
Sorry, I
you and
just had
Dawn. Yeah.
just a quick one on section 3. I think there was like a section on cranberry bog farming, which I did have some suggested language for. So Amy, if you want me to send that through, you may have already edited that section, but in case it's helpful, I can send that through to you.
It would be very helpful if you could send it. That would be really that would be great. I did speak a little bit in my draft about the conversion of some of the
Right.
cranberry operations to more natural environments. So if that's along the lines of what you were maybe getting
Yeah.
at, I would
Yeah,
guess.
same kind of stuff. But yeah, I'll send it through in case it's helpful, and you
Please
can
send
kind of
me your
include it or
language.
not. All right, will do.
Thank you.
Thanks. No worries.
Yeah, also, I forgot to mention, I did work a little bit on the demographics too, so whatever you have, I'm just gonna compare what we have, and then if there's any discrepancies, we can talk about that next time.
Yeah,
But
'cause I got the new information from Christine from the
The housing production plan,
Okay,
the
that's
needs
perfect.
assessment portion had a lot of updated demographics for
Yep.
the town of Harwich.
Great, okay, that's what I was looking at too, so I'm expecting everything to be the same then.
great.
Awesome, thank you so much. Okay, so I know you and Dawn then are gonna meet for section 4. I personally don't have any comments about that aside just looking at the appendix C, which
Mhm.
is the species list that is
Mhm.
important. The state will definitely want an updated version of that, so just
Yep, my
hi Link.
I link.
Okay, great.
Hi,
I saw
everybody.
My quick brush through of section 4 that I've taken. There's not a whole lot. There are little bits and pieces that need to be updated.
Mhm.
But it doesn't seem to be too big of a lift. So, but Don and we'll meet next week and we can divide it up if that works with Don. So,
That works for me. I'm just checking it over here. Looking forward to seeing you next week, Amy.
sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, let's go to section 5. This is like a more hefty section in terms of like the appendix. And I have a couple comments myself about things that I want to suggest, but I first wanted to like leave it up to you guys to let me know where you're at, how you're doing with the actual text of the section, but also more, just equally as important is Appendix D specifically. I believe someone mentioned in a previous meeting that they were thinking of like reorganizing the appendix table and maybe thinking about changing something. So I just wanted to ask how that is going.
Christine, you want to lead off?
Sure. For section 5, I've been working on part of the inventory and updating recent acquisitions for the town. I've worked with Margot, Fen. We also had a meeting with Dave Callahan in terms of some of the mapping, but we are reviewing not only CPC acquisitions, but also the Harwich Conservation Trust, in addition to other acquisitions by other departments, such as the water department, and any items that have been reported in the annual town reports that aren't necessarily limited to CPC funding. So
Okay.
we've started working on those inventories to update that information.
Okay. Do you have a working like Excel sheet of that appendix?
Yes,
Or
I
you
do.
kind of, you do? Okay, great.
We also met with the I also met with the assessors department, Carly Jones, who was super helpful. and itemizing, also identifying town-owned property as well as when the properties were acquired by the town. So that was also very helpful. So I can provide that information to you, Arika, in an Excel format.
That's perfect. Okay, cool. Yeah, because I was gonna suggest helping recreate that because it is like super large and hefty, but I'm glad you already have it. Okay, yeah, because I was thinking about, I was looking at other tables and whether we wanted to add like any potential extra columns for that. One in particular was about ADA access, but I don't know if it's super relevant for that kind of a table, but and like how beneficial it would be in that context. I know other towns have done it though, so I just wanted to bring that up, but it might be more important for his follow-up suggestion I'm gonna have. But sideline that, I do wanted to ask about the degree of protection column. I know in the text of section 5, it has pretty clear definitions about properties that are considered fully protected, partially protected, and also just not protected, but are still considered open space. I didn't know if we wanted to clarify that in the degree of protection column. There were different, let me just go to the actual table so we can just pop to it.
I
One
think
second.
if there are guidelines from the state, if we can identify it,
Mhm.
and it's easy to identify, then by all means, we should add a column.
Mhm.
On the ADA access, I think that's going to be a lot more, I think that might be a lot more challenging to identify.
Okay. I
But
think, yeah.
but if there's an opportunity to add it, I don't think it hurts, but
Mhm.
I think the definitions would be much easier to as a start. The ADA might be a tougher lift.
Because it could either be like in the narrative, it might already be there. I might have just missed it, where like all of these, basically anything that comes up in the degree of protection column that currently exists, could either just be restated in the narrative as like being under a specific section. Like when you see this, you should understand that that is fully protected, for example, or partially or not. And maybe that would just provide some clarifying information. And I say that because I don't know, I think sometimes it's just more easy to understand. It's not necessary though if you don't think it's like, this is up to you. These are just my suggestions that I was having.
Can I ask Mike to weigh in on that question? I mean, how to, you know, how to define what those categories mean? I mean, it seems like the obvious thing is full protection would be with a conservation restriction, but Mike, do you have thoughts about that?
On, are we talking about HCT fee simple holdings or town as well?
Town as well.
Yeah, so when you see in the column to the right there, degree of protection,
Mhm.
so those are, I'm guessing all the way to the left is probably, these are Harwich Conservation Trust lands. I think that
It
we
is, yeah.
generated this spreadsheet at one point. So, right, thanks, Argus. So the properties where you see charitable trust, that essentially acts as an overlay protection similar to a conservation restriction. Charitable trust is just written into the deed, whereas conservation restriction is typically a separate legal recorded document. Relative to town fee simple properties, including land bank funded acquisitions and then CPA open space funded acquisitions, some of the land bank properties received a conservation restriction. I think at the time there might have been an interpretation of the statute that by some that said a CR or conservation restriction was required in a land bank statute, and then interpretation by others that said maybe not. So it wasn't, the land bank acquisitions were not consistently protected with an overlay protection like a conservation restriction. So that's something maybe this process wants to address, and for future recommendation within the document. I'll just park that for others to consider. After the land bank transitioned to the Community Preservation Act, that statute was interpreted more consistently as requiring a conservation restriction held by another entity on land acquired with town community preservation act open space funds. Some of those community preservation act open space funds were used to protect were used to purchase land by the town, and in that case Harwich Conservation Trust would typically hold a conservation restriction, or the reverse. If CPA open space funds were authorized by town meeting to purchase a land for HCT to purchase a property, then the town would hold a conservation restriction. State grants also require that overlay or protection. There's that permanency aspect sought through the CPA statute and the state grant programs. So that can all be defined in this appendix and updated. Margot, I haven't had a chance to look at the latest list that you created, but thank you for sending that.
The list that Mike is referring to is, Christina and I talked, and what I told her I would do is to make a list of what I thought were the most significant open space acquisitions by the town and the trust in the 2016 to 2023 time period. We've got a spreadsheet that lists them all, but it's not really very meaningful to look at that spreadsheet. What is meaningful is to hear what these properties are and why they're valuable. So that's what I tried to do it's just a little over a page long. So and I need Mike to take a look at that, because I want to make sure all the information that I've put in it is correct. Mike, is it correct to say that in the last 8 years, if there was a town open space purchase, the trust has a conservation restriction on it, and vice versa? In other words, the new ones.
Yeah, if it was using CPA open space funds.
Okay. All right. Okay. And we do have, as Christine mentioned, there's at least a few water department acquisitions that happened in the last few years too, which I don't know if they're conservation restricted, but they're for water supply protection.
I think that list is, sorry. I don't mean
I was going to say, I don't know if it's within the past, 8 years or so, but the selectmen also do hold open space land, may or may not have conservation language on it, but there are lands in the town that are open space that are selectmen care and custody.
That's a really good point, Amy. And just to reflect back on Margot's question of whether or not the CPA open space funded acquisitions all have a CR, that needs to be verified. And then Amy's question is a good expansion on that notion of whether quote unquote conservation land held by another entity, such as the select board versus conservation commission. If the town meeting warrant article, as voted by the citizens of town, the voters in town, stated it was for conservation purposes, did that follow on into the deed? It didn't. It hasn't always done so in a study that was done in the town of Brewster several years ago, which Harwich might learn from. Maybe that's an element to review, recommend within this OSRP update. For because that analysis isn't going to happen with our group here. It takes more time than I think we have in this review process, but it's something that might be a recommendation to channel resources to study, analyze the the intended open space acquisitions to date by the town, and whether or not they are actually legally protected for that purpose. And in Brewster, there was a discovery that indeed several were not, even though the intention by town meeting vote was to do that. It just didn't carry through for various reasons. No nefarious intent, just happened because of different conveyancing aspects. So something to consider. Brewster is very interesting. That study done in Brewster.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think all of this, it's kind of up to you if you guys want to provide what Mike was saying, and either in the appendix itself for descriptions of what the degree of protection means, or you can implement it in the text. You just have to like call out the appendix, which I think is pretty simple. But I think it's beneficial for sure, and I feel like everyone agrees.
Mhm.
I actually noticed here that there are some call outs for ADA access, which I didn't notice maybe in the other table. So that's already there actually, which is good. But I did want to actually recommend separately another table that I've seen in other plans that specifically call out, and maybe this is kind of similar a little bit to the table created about like significant parcels, but these would be parcels more about recreation that people actively visit, and have different, like kind of, I'll just show you here. Let's see examples. Let's go down here. So I think this was from Brewster's plan. Oh no, it was from Longmeadow, Massachusetts plan. And basically it kind of just tells you what the name is of the open space area, who owns it, and then some very simple information about it. This could be more or less depending on what you think, but I think this is a good table to be actually conveying information about what will be in the open space map that we will eventually create. The old map here, this is the existing open space map that was provided in the previous plan. However, there are limited labels. So there's some labels for the ponds and maybe some for parks. This was one of those state parks. But there are not many labels for the other call outs here. It identifies the type of property, but it doesn't necessarily name it. I find that maybe it's because Harwich tends to have a lot of properties, so I don't know if that is the issue, but sometimes I think it's beneficial to have the map here with labels and then corresponding with that table that actually provides more information than just what a map can show. And we could talk about like ADA access as well in that kind of table as well, but that is typically something I see in section 5. And that could be, I know maybe it was Christine mentioned earlier that you are working with someone in GIS about acquiring these properties. Was it Dave Callahan? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. It might be beneficial for us to communicate together if they have data that we can potentially put in a map format as well. I'm going to show you some maps that we've created thus far later in this call, but just knowing that person's name is helpful so we can maybe share that information. But regardless, yeah, let me know what you think about that though. I can send after this call follow up to that section subgroup with those sample tables, and maybe we can just take a look at that with the map. But sometimes I just find that to be really helpful.
That would
What-
be helpful. I'm sorry, Mario, go ahead.
I was just going to say what Dave has done
Mhm.
is put together a database from using assessor's records and mapping that goes with the database. And it's broken down much more detailed than the map that you're showing us here from the last plan.
Mhm.
It distinguishes what the Harwich Conservation Trust lands are. It distinguishes the different types of town-owned land. Is it water department? Is it conservation? Is it, selectmen held,
Mhm.
so forth? And they're great maps. They're not perfect. As Davis said, there's always a lag in updating the assessor's information, and so it's kind of a moving target, and you just basically have to pick a place and time and say, this is the best information that we have
Yeah.
now. But
Okay.
he gave us, both Christine and me, a link to KMZ files that have this information. And what you can do when you've got, the map in front of you is you can just click on it, click on a given parcel, and all the data for that parcel comes
Oh,
up.
I see. Okay, so it's more interactive.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Correct.
So, that I think it would be much more useful, and a much easier way to cross-reference, where the properties are and, what their values are.
Okay, I think that's fine too. I mean, knowing you already have that base is great. So, and I agree. I think it's easier to have it all in one place than like in this sense, like this was Gardner's plan. They had kind of broken out like by like municipal, they also had state and any federal land with like specific things where they called out like activities, but a lot of like they didn't really call out like specifically conservation land. But if you already have like an interface where you can engage with it in any parcel, I think that is actually beneficial. We just have to make sure we can link it well in the plan, call it out in a way that I think we should have like a screen grab of some sort to still include like an image of it in some
Oh, sure.
capacity, but
Yeah.
then also have like, I don't know, QR code, something that won't break so that people 5 years in time can still access it through the plan, for example. Okay, that's great to know though. Awesome.
It also highlights a lot of the trails and other active recreation aspects, so which I think will be helpful.
Yeah, because I'm wondering, like, it might be beneficial to like put a hatch or something over specifically recreation land, so people can like easily identify instead of having to click many spaces. But we can talk about that later. I think that's cool. Okay, awesome. All right. Next, who is the next group? The next group is the 80 facility forms. Think who is in that group? Link. Remind me. Sorry, John. I think.
Yep, I'm
John
here.
and Eric, I think.
Eric. Who's not here, but Eric did send me some information, so that's good. John, do
I
you
can
wanna
start. I think Link and Eric are here, so they can butt in, but I'll
Okay.
kick it off. So yeah, we got together and met and kind of divided some areas for us to review and update. I know, I think all of us have sent you some information on what we looked at.
Yeah.
I specifically looked at the harbors and updated the ADA information. I added a couple facilities that aren't there for consideration, and I just did the track changes as you had recommended.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you.
And then I know Eric looked at all the beach facilities, and Link looked at some of the facilities. So I'll pass it on to Eric, and you can update your sheet there, Eric, if you're there.
I don't know if Eric's on the call actually.
Oh, he's not on the call?
I don't think he could make it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw his name here, but okay. Well, how about Link? I know you're on.
Hey, John. Yes, I am. Yeah, just like John said, we met, we divided it up. I sent a Word document to Erica earlier today that basically was a variance analysis. Anything from the previous assessments that was different, I highlighted in the Word document. And there wasn't a lot of it. We added like a bathroom at Brooks Park. There's been more handicap spacing at like the community center, some small things, but for the most part, it was all pretty much the same.
Okay. Did you do that directly in the appendix link? I'm just trying to remember. Someone sent me just like a Word doc with some information of what
I did
they
not.
had
All
done.
I got, John
Okay.
handed me a pile of paper, and I went through the paper and
Okay.
called the department heads that had jurisdiction under there, and I went and visited 2 sites just to confirm a couple things. But the
Okay.
only difference from the previous one was what I highlighted in the Word document that I sent to you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, Erica, I sent you the table with the track changes from the
I
appendix.
saw that one.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then Link, he took the previous year's check checklists for the facilities and worked off of those checklists. He didn't do new checklists. He just obviously,
Right.
like he said, highlighted the differences. And I think Eric did the same thing for his beach facilities.
I see. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And Erica, there wasn't anything in Appendix E, there wasn't anything under my jurisdiction or really that looked like it involved. It was mainly harbors and beaches.
Yeah,
That was in
because I know
Appendix E.
there's like they have also like these little things too, beach rules. I don't know if anyone else has comments about this too. I don't if these have changed
Yep.
at all. Just like any of these flyers and this map was an old map.
That would be an Eric question.
An Eric question. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I think, and this is your comments, I think, right here.
Correct.
So, okay, cool. Yeah, I think I just need to go through all of them and just see myself what you guys have sent, and then maybe create some compiled version.
But as far
But
as
you
the
are
opening-
also, yeah,
Go ahead.
keep going.
As far as the opening pages, I don't think a lot has changed other than who's the new ADA coordinator for the town. So I made that change. But as far as, the opening, the actual regulation and the questions, the standard questions, if somebody feels like they have a complaint, who do they contact? I did read through that. I think a lot of it is still intact. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for reading through that. Do you plan on adding any more new facilities to the list that was the old forms? Or are you gonna kind of stick with what the old forms had identified for the facilities?
I won't speak for Link or Eric, but again, I've added some of the harbor facilities, and in the previous plan didn't have checklists for the harbors.
Okay.
I don't think it's needed. I think what the table outlines is pretty clear on what facilities, harbor facilities have for ADA access. So
Okay.
I don't know about Eric.
All right. Okay, cool. I can make I'm just gonna go through your stuff and it'll be easier for me just to read through it all and then see where you guys are at. But I think that is helpful. Let anyone know for all the groups if anyone needs help before we figure out our deadline in February. And I'm available too to try to help as well with putting stuff together. So I appreciate everyone putting in all this work. I know it's like annoying, but it's good. I did want to ask really quick if anyone had any additional appendices that they were thinking of adding or thinking should be added rather. One or a few that I was thinking is just kind of beef up Appendix G. In the previous plan, it was pretty simple where I think it was just showing what the old survey questions were. However, the document was a little hard to read. It's like down here somewhere. I think this was mostly Appendix G. It shows some like results too for the questions. I think I was thinking we could kind of with SurveyMonkey, which is the platform we're planning on using. I can go into that with a public participation subcommittee. That will be the next discussion, I think. But kind of showing the actual questions and like using SurveyMonkey, which has pretty good layout how questions like what the results were, and they have pretty good summaries about all of that and all the open-ended questions, which will be anonymous. You won't know the name of the people. I was talking to Christine about that. Will be included, but you'll just see what the comments were. You won't see who actually made those comments. So no one gets put on blast, basically. And if we have any like workshop materials that would potentially come out of maybe if we're doing it in April, that workshop with the local comp plans committee, we can include those in our appendix as well and link that as additional outreach work that we've done. Sometimes if we'll discuss what that workshop would look like, but if you have people like write on maps about things they would like to work on, like potential actions that the town should do relating to open space, we can include screenshots of like those maps and people's comments. So things like that. I also wanted to ask, I didn't notice in this plan, but in other plans I've noticed endorsement letters. Do you remember doing that for the last plan, Amy? Okay, I've
No.
also seen committee support letters, oh, sorry, community support letters from just
Hmm.
other groups as well, that were added as an appendix. But, I mean, I think the main endorsements would be from, I think, just the state, of course. I think that's the primary one that needs to be included, but otherwise, I'm not sure if other ones necessarily need to be there.
I mean, if you think it's
Um,
helpful, we can certainly, you know, the Conservation Commission or the Recreation Committee,
Yeah,
we can do that, you know, once it's in final draft form, have them review.
yeah.
We
I
could
think like
also,
sorry, Christine.
no, I was also gonna say, we could also add, you know, our state representatives or,
Mhm.
like the Cape
Mhm.
Cod Commission as the regional planning agency,
Mhm.
and as well as, the planning
The
board or
local
other,
boards, yeah.
the local boards.
I'll make a note about this one to like go back to this conversation later on, maybe when the plan is a little bit more fleshed out, because I think it's something that would be nice to have. I've also seen other communities do a list of actual funding mechanisms, so talking about grants in a more detailed manner. The town in their 7-year action plan, which we're going to talk about after this phase, basically of what we're doing right now, we're going to get into more of the goals and the actual actions that will come of these goals, also following the outreach that we've done. But they do mention sometimes funding sources. I've seen other towns just provide like maybe like a little bit more explanation about what these funding sources are. That could be included as an
Mhm.
appendix, or it could be described in the actual like narrative here of this section. But that's just up to you if you wanted to provide more details about what those are and what they're typically going for. But again, it's not necessary. But yeah, if anyone has any other thoughts about things as they go through their sections about maybe adding something, adding another table or not, just let me know and I'll make a note about it. But yeah, that's what I was thinking for now. I think the next bit is talking about outreach, which is a big component and we're kind of figuring it all out right now. So the public participation group, which is Julie, Mike, and Christine, we've been kind of going through different components of process for that. So one involves creating a survey, which we have a draft right now. It's not finalized. I can show everyone the draft. There's about 20 questions in it, a little bit more. What we've decided and calls that we've had together is kind of following the Yarmouth draft survey or the Yarmouth survey that they had done fairly recently. Actually, they had done 2. It was one of the ones that they had done, and we broke it up into different sections. The thing about the survey, though, that I want to relay to everyone, just so everyone's on the same page, is that we're trying to coordinate with the local comp plan committee right now about when their survey is going to finish. I sometimes think it's beneficial to not have 2 large surveys happening at the same time. It's confusing for the public and people might think, oh, I already did a survey for the town, and then just dismiss ours, even though it's different content. Originally, the local comprehensive plan was supposed to end their survey in January at the end of the month, but they've decided to push it back. Potentially, they originally said March. I'm pretty sure it was the end of March. We're having conversations now about maybe changing that to probably being ideally mid-February, but that decision won't come out until they have their next meeting, which is the 6th of February. So we'll see what happens with that, but ideally, I'd like to get all of our materials ready in the event that when it does close on their end, we can basically start putting ours out as soon as possible, just because of our timeline. Originally, I was thinking 6 weeks of having it open. So probably if that works, maybe like mid-February to late March, that would then lead us into the April workshop with the local comprehensive plan committee. And then we can start working off of our results from that survey and then thinking about like our goals and the next step of this process. Then I just think that would be a nice progression. However, if they close theirs in March, it's gonna make our timeline a little funky, and we're gonna have to think about how we want to do that. But yeah. Christine, do you or anyone else, do you have anything to add to that conversation?
Erica, I agree with you. It does set our schedules back a bit, and it also I dislike the idea of having two large surveys going on at the same time because it is a bit confusing.
Yeah.
But we did talk, Sharon and I did talk with Joyce McIntyre, who's the chair of the local comprehensive plan committee, and she was amenable to tying back that deadline to maybe
Mhm.
mid-February. But again, we'll confirm that at their next meeting on February 6th. So
Okay, great. Yeah, because there's a few steps I'd like to take before that time, which involves finalizing our survey. I want everyone here to at least have eyes on it. So I might skim through it now, but I might send it a more finalized version, perhaps at the end of the week to everyone, just so everyone knows what it is before it goes out to the public. And we're gonna work on finishing that this week. And that would then lead me into putting all the questions in SurveyMonkey. We're going to also create postcards. Those postcards we've decided are just going to go out to the block group that is considered an environmental justice community in the town. It's about, I think it's a little under 300 households, so it's actually not going to be a huge lift. We just need to prepare with a printer and have that be a process that's ready to go basically by the time we want to have it publicized, which hopefully we would send those out the first week or so of it being public, just to give those people time. We also need to coordinate. We're thinking of having paper copy drop-offs at the library and the community center. We also really want to focus on coordinating and publicizing this survey to younger populations. The previous survey had a large 60 plus population response rate. But considering this is more open space and recreation, I think it's beneficial for younger people and younger families who tend to be going to these kind of facilities more often. Maybe like for sporting events, like those kind of facilities more often. To those people. So we're talking about engaging the school district, different things like that. So we can have people take a look at it. Yeah, I think that's it. We'll let you know. I could skim through the survey really quick, so everyone can see it. But this paragraph is kind of opening it up, and we're going to make it clear that it's separate from the other draft. And we're going to update some of this information once we have a final version of it. But basically, we decided to start with some demographic information here. It's not that many questions, just kind of getting a general feel for who's answering the survey. So like we just talked about age, I think that's an important question. We have some general vision questions. Again, these questions a lot of them are taken directly from the Yarmouth survey. Julie had mentioned she previously actually took that survey and thought it was pretty good, considering she's a busy person and was able to tackle all the questions fairly. We're also catering the survey to be less open-ended questions. That just allows it for us to have an easier time actually like going through them and reviewing them and analyzing them instead of going through tons of comments that people have. There will be some of the questions, but not a ton. We have a lot of like agree, strongly disagree type questions, important questions here. I'm going to send this to you. I don't think I will have time for me to go through every single question, but we're also breaking up into little categories. So we have natural resources. This is the primary category, of course, open space and recreation facilities. This, I tried to have it so that we call out specific places, and people can choose their top 2 facilities so we get an idea of what is being visited more often, what do people like, what are the just more popular places in Harwich. You'll see this is done for different categories like beaches, ponds. conservation areas. And again, this is just a draft. We're going to work on finishing it, but we're asking some questions about frequency and time. There are some more general questions, but they do involve things like, do you think it has poor ADA access, which can relate then to our drafts later on. If people are relating that there's a lot of issues, we can think about that with our ADA group. And this is a more specific question about that. So if people have specific places they can call out, we can directly recognize that with our work that we're doing already. And this question is just seeing what places people visit more and if there are things lacking about these facilities. It seems a lot, but like it's more just like pick a few and then move on. Don't address every single one, basically. This might be cut because it's really long, but choosing your top 5 things that need more improvement. And these are just different statements, and people make a comment about how they feel about that, whether they're in favor or not of those kind of statements that are relating to open space. Yeah, okay, so that's basically it. And we have an open-ended question here about any other comments. So that's kind of what the direction we're going in with the survey. So I can again send a more final version, and we're going to work to get everything prepared so that when the survey's out, we'll also I'll let everyone know probably in an email, because I just don't, if it happens before our next meeting, I just want to be able to let it go public before we have our next meeting in the event it's later in the month, just for time's sake, honestly. So that's why I'm going through it now. Okay. I next wanted to show you guys maps, which I think is the more fun part. We have some drafts, so I just want everyone to kind of chime in. Let me know if they have any comments about how it looks. I have some different versions of things, so I'm just going to kind of jump around a little bit. But this is kind of what we're looking at. This is just one version, of course. So this is the environmental justice map. So this is our environmental justice area. So this is what we're calling out. But from previous comments that we've had in other calls, we kind of wanted to show what is also happening in other towns abutting this one, but kind of dim it out so it's more obvious that we're looking here. But you can see that Harwich does border other environmental justice areas, and to keep that in mind. And this is a more simplified version of this map. I made a comment about maybe moving this box over here. You'll see that, but it doesn't have as much of a bulky sidebar as this one, for example. And just thinking about if we want it to be a little bit more simplified or have it be a little bit more standard with the sidebar here with the information provided. This is also a zoning map that looks like it too, so you can kind of get a different feel for what it would look like without the aerial as much of the aerial content. We also have more simplified versions of this, so we also have it without the aerial, so it's a little bit more plain. I don't know if people think this is a little bit cleaner, or if you like the aerial version. I can go back so you can kind of see the comparison. So basically it's just kind of showing you more of the ponds and the ocean and all that kind of stuff, versus this just making it very bland. So, and then I have another example here with open. This is the old open space one that we've kind of regenerated for the time being, just to see what it looks like. This was taken from the 2017 version, but this will obviously change based off our conversation earlier. So yeah, I'm gonna let you guys give me any comments about this. Also, if you have comments about adding maps, I provided a list to everyone previously about what are the required maps versus what are additional maps you can potentially include. I don't think we should include that many just for budget purposes, but maybe 1 or 2 if, as you go through your documents, if you think it's really important that we have something that's missing and that's shown in a map format, we can talk about that too. So as you finish up your sections, maybe just keep that in mind, as well as graphics that are just like tables or pictures, that as well. So,
Might be helpful to have one that more highlights our water resources. As
Yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
recreation for Harwich is really largely based around water, like the harbors that John manages, the river, Long
Mhm.
Pond for boating, things like that.
well, definitely. So water resources is a required map.
Yeah,
Just showing you some examples here, but that's
Gotcha.
totally one. In the previous plan, actually, Harwich Team 2 actually broke out a lot of those maps. So it took all this content that's required, but created basically a less busy version of a map, because that one in particular gets extremely hard to view since there's so many things to include on it.
Mhm.
So maybe we can think about doing something like that, but that will definitely be there for sure. Like other suggestion maps that maybe everyone can think about would be a historic community, population characteristics, current land uses, existing infrastructure, environmental challenges. They have descriptions in that guidebook about like what the content would mean about what these are that I'm saying here, but yeah. So, but do you guys tend to like this version more or the plainer version? I just want to get a feel for that.
I like them both. I don't really have a strong opinion either way.
Okay,
I like the other one.
this one.
No, that was,
Sorry, it's slow. This one.
nope.
Oh, okay.
When
I
you had a,
know, I know we're required to include this map,
Mhm.
but it's going to create a lot more questions than, I mean, it makes absolutely no sense. I mean,
I
I
agree.
realize it's
Yeah.
based on census data, but it really makes no sense in the real world. Not in
Yeah.
Chatham, not in Harwich.
No.
So just
If you
saying.
were to ask ask us where that section should be in Harwich, I don't think any of us would put it
Mhm.
necessarily where it is. The Main Street core up in the Main Street corridor, potentially things like that. But
Mhm. A part
and
of me
heading
wonders
into
if
North,
it's a community that's highly a lot of retirees, and maybe that's why it's calling out income. But that might
maybe,
not be addressed by actual like be on the ground and looking at these communities, knowing these people. I think what's beneficial is just really describing in the plan itself what this is and where this content is coming from. It's not content we created, it's content the state created, and it's just
Okay.
something we need to relay to not like just to clarify why it's like that. People might have confusion why the state did that, but that's not for us to answer. So yeah.
Erica, Ty and Bond is working on a couple of other culvert projects for me, and we had some grants, and the environmental justice portion of that, which was a state requirement, was over, like Amy just said, Main Street, Great Western Road area, behind the capped landfill, essentially.
Okay.
And that was what they had a map of that small area. And that's what was used. So I don't recognize this, and I agree with Margot's comments 110%.
Do you remember, Link, who you were specifically working with from Ty and Bond? I can ask around. I'm not working on those projects.
Eric Ohanian is my primary contact. So he'd be
Okay, I
able to
can
get it
reach
for
out
you.
and ask how they developed that content for you,
Yep.
and whether they got it from a different resource. I just know for us, there's a specific website that we were supposed to pull this from, and that's where I'm getting this information. But I'm wondering,
Well, the
yeah,
state
for
gave us a
grants.
grant, so for 100 grand
Yeah.
for it. So
I think the maps were updated fairly recently and it removed an area. I recall seeing that they had changed from the
Yeah.
last census data. So it may
This
have
one
been
was-
the old version that had the additional area.
Okay. Yeah, because this was updated in 2022, I believe, with 2020 data. So Link, I'm not sure if those are. It sounds recent, but Okay, I'll ask though. I'll ask around for that. Make a comment for myself. And there were culvert grants, you said? Okay,
Yes, Eric's working on that. I forget who the actual engineer was doing the work
I figured it
on
out.
it, but if you touch base with Eric, he can hook you up.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. I mean, that's basically the last thing I wanted to show you guys. I just, again, wanted to make a comment about if you have pictures of Harwich that you think could be beneficial, taking them yourselves of parks nearby you or beaches. Just populating the plan, I think, with a little bit more graphics is nice, and it's just easier on the eyes. So I think if everyone in this group provides like a few photos, that would provide a pretty good database for us to work off of.
I have a bunch. I'll send you.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Okay, so I mean, at this point, I just wanted to set a date for. Wait, also, like, can you clarify what map you liked? I don't think I got that. Was it this one? Or like the
Nope.
one with more aerial
The-
stuff?
They're not the
Nope.
same.
Is there a third one? You
Yeah, you had a
one
third
that-
one you pushed.
I
you
think
put
for
in there.
I'm some of them have different content. The only difference I'm really asking is about like whether you guys like the fact that it has an aerial on the background.
Oh.
It's like a little bit more realistic looking, or it has this like more simple sidebar, or you like the little bit more like gray with
Okay,
the
those
simple.
weren't either of the ones. You had another map up there that I thought was you were asking us about. Yes, that one.
Okay,
That's our old one, isn't it?
Yep.
I think this was based off of, yeah, Michael, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I think one of the benefits of the aerial, you don't have to toggle back to it, but one of the benefits is that it shows the extent of development in a strong visual way. Another way to accomplish that could be to put the building footprints. There's a layer
Yep.
in GIS, at least through Cape Cod Commission. I'm not sure if it's on Mass GIS, where you can overlay the building footprints, which
Okay,
might be a way to do it on even on the map you just had.
yeah. Okay, I
Um,
see what you're saying, instead of like showing the actual aerial.
Yeah,
This
that
one-
looks like actually that's overlaid on that with those.
It
those
is,
white.
yeah.
Mhm.
So,
From afar, it
that's
just
one
doesn't look
way. If you were to toggle back to your green polygon map there, even overlaying the building footprints onto that map might be helpful because it gives the balanced picture of development compared to open space. Somebody who's not familiar with Harwich would could look at this and say, "Oh, geez, there's plenty of open space, and there must be more, so much more that can be acquired for parks or passive recreation." You know, the two of the intents of or two of the areas of interest within the OSRP. So,
Okay.
just some thought there.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, this one, it just, yeah, it makes it very clear like what the content is, whereas the other one, there's a little bit more look at, I guess, with the aerial. So maybe starting with something a little bit more like this, and then having potentially building footprints, to show that build out is good. Okay.
Yeah, or you could have a map like this, and then you could have a comparison map with the building footprints overlaid, something like
Okay.
that. It's just one more page, and mostly this is probably going to be viewed online in PDF rather than print form. So,
Yeah, for sure. And maybe some of the maps, it might be more beneficial to have that versus others like this one. Okay. Thank you for that. All right, I just want to set a date at this point for the next meeting and for when everyone feels like they can provide me a draft of their sections or whatever their content is. I will be here all next month. I won't be away. So if I want to suggest something, I was thinking maybe we have a meeting on the 26th and then have all the drafts due the week before, so like the 19th. I'm just saying Monday now just because that's something or wait, what day is it today? It's Tuesday. So maybe we can do Tuesday instead. to the 27th and then have the drafts due the 20th. Does that work for people?
That's fine.
It's good for me.
Okay. Okay, and of course you guys can send me anything before that day, but
Mhm.
I think we can just plan for that. And I think for the meeting, we can still do 1 PM. Does that work for everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Here, let me just make sure I'm actually available on my side.
Is
Yeah,
it,
that's perfect.
would it impact the timeline too much to bump that back? Bump those 2
To
weeks
do-
back a week or no?
No, I
If-
don't
if-
think so. Like if we want to have the meeting, it said like the beginning of March and then have
Yeah,
like basically the whole month to work on stuff.
Yeah, March 5th, and then you drafts due on the 27th. If it negatively impacts your timeline, no problem. Just thinking about giving a little more time.
I don't think it will, because I think so. Basically, next steps, like that will be when the survey ideally would be out for us. So basically, I'm just gonna be collecting data. But I think what I'll be doing on the side is after reviewing a lot of your content, that will come in the week before. I'm thinking that meeting will be kind of a mix between kind of looking at what everyone's provided and then talking about next steps, which we'll be talking about basically the following sections, 6 through 9, which get into the goals and the action plan. But a lot of that stuff won't really be able to happen in a more efficient way until probably April when we get our results back from the community, from the survey and our other outreach processes. So the workshop. So I think that's fine.
So
But
March 5th for the meeting.
yeah. And then the 27th for the due date of the materials. Okay. Okay.
I was going to suggest that, Christine, we know that, that Dave Callahan is going to be away for the month of February. So if there's any need for Erica to actually speak with him and get some background on what he did with the maps, that needs to happen soon.
Okay. I'll follow up with Dave and Erica as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. I'm trying to think if there's I think what I'm gonna do is just work on the survey this week with the committee and I'll send you guys materials at the end of this week or next week. And I don't think I have much follow-up otherwise, unless someone is requesting anything. I think that's good. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.
And leave it.